Good evening. Hopefully you've been having a good day. Of course, we had a lot of younger folks go up for senior week at camp, and Levi doesn't miss his mommy. That's all I know so far from camp. So, is that right, Amy? Levi doesn't miss his mommy, so it's a hard thing to take. Jace hadn't missed his mommy for years when he's there, so. But we still got Isaac. He misses us. Don't you, buddy? Huh? I think I embarrassed him. He's getting older, too. If you can embarrass them, you know they're getting older, right? Yeah. And isn't that one of the hardest things in the world? Watching your kids grow up. I mean, don't get me wrong. You want them to grow up. I love watching my boys as they've learned to do things and figure out things, and you know are proud of them at times when they accomplish and achieve, but well, there are things you miss. The magic and wonder, just the simple joy that young kids kind of carry into each day. I'll never forget when Jace was little, he would declare over the simplest outings, the simplest things. He'd be like, best day ever, And it's like, buddy, we just went to Yogurt Mountain. I know, best day ever. Yogurt Mountain's not even around anymore. So it's been a few years since we did that. And he used to have this really cute little high-pitched voice that would speed up when he would get excited and talk, oh, it's up here somewhere. Now it's like, what's up, buddy? He's like, hey. It's just not the same. Not the same. I remember when Levi, he had that innocent little giggle. Man, he had a good giggle when he was little. And I think back to things like keeping him on Fridays. Whenever the boys started preschool, I would keep them on Fridays. And so it was like, dad and kid bonding time. And I'll never forget the time that he wanted to make pumpkin-shaped Rice Krispie treats. I was like, why not? Let's try it. So we got some food coloring in red and yellow and made it orange, and I shaped them. That was such a mess, We took Rolos, little mini Rolos for the stem, and then green M&Ms for a little leaf on all of them. And Isaac was there too. He helped by eating every M&M that wasn't green. He was great at his job. But Levi, he was so thrilled with that. Just something simple, right? If we did it now, he'd be like, woohoo, big deal. Yeah. And Isaac, we had moments too. I've got some videos on my phone. December 22nd, 2021, I watched him the other day. That was my birthday, and he was home with me that day. It had to be a Friday, I assume. And I was videoing him in slow motion on the phone. He was just running and jumping and grabbing the string of the balloon as he flopped onto the couch, and I did it in slow-mo. And so I just have to, once you do it once, how many times do you have to do it? Again and again and again and again, right? So it's just over and over and over. And eventually, what do you think I said as an adult? After the 10th or the 12th or the 13th time, what do you think I said? That's enough, right? That's enough. I was the grown-up in the room, I mean, after you laugh at the same joke for 10 or 11 or 12 times, or, you replay the same video over and over again, okay, that's enough. G.K. Chesterton was a man who's a writer who came to believe in Christianity over time. And his book, Orthodoxy, is considered his greatest work by a number of people. I'm trying to read it currently. I'll be honest, it's a grind. He's really hard to follow. But I heard a quote from the book the other day. And man, it just, like when I heard it, I was like, oh my goodness, that's gold. You ever hear one of those? And I've actually been really disappointed so far, because as soon as I heard it, I started sharing it with people. And I shared it with people, and they were like, yeah, that's really good. So I'm going to try you all. Maybe somebody here, maybe not all of you, but maybe somebody here is going to hear that and be like, that is really, really good. Listen to it. Because children have abounding vitality, because they are in spirit fierce and free, therefore, they want things repeated and unchanged. They always say, do it again. And the grown-up person does it again until he is nearly dead. For grown-up people are not strong enough to exult in monotony, but perhaps God is strong enough to exult in monotony. It is possible that God says every morning, do it again to the sun, and every evening, do it again to the moon. It may not be automatic necessity that makes all daisies alike. It may be that God makes every daisy separately, but has never got tired of making them. It may be that he has the eternal appetite of infancy, for we have sinned and grown old, and our Father is younger than we. I mean, wow, every time I read it, I just get chills a little bit, you know? It's so simple, but it's so true. Grown-up people, we can't handle do it again too many times. And that's enough patty cake, that's enough peekaboo, that's enough foolish laughter over something silly. Time to stop, time to get serious. I don't know why we need to be so serious all the time. Maybe because we're such important people with such important jobs. You know, things depend on us, right? We keep the world spinning and working and moving and progress, and we have sinned and grown old. And our Father is younger than we. That's an insane statement to make, isn't it? The eternal God of creation, who knows no beginning and no end, is younger than we, but maybe it's true. Our souls have become old and wrinkled and tired and stretched thin by sin and the loss of joy and wonder. But what is behind so much of the sin, by the way, that damages us? What's often causing it, I guess I should say? What drives it? Sometimes I think it's because we lose the feeling of joy and wonder and newness in the repeated things. The good, the regular good of God no longer feels good enough, so we seek elsewhere for feeling and vitality and excitement. Addiction, how does addiction start? A lot of times it's simple boredom, isn't it? Just nothing better to do. A dullness, a numbness about life. People lose their joy in life, in the world. And we're not satisfied in a God who brings new mercies every morning. Maybe we forget how to appreciate a sunrise. What about adultery? You know, many people try to make the statement now, well, humans weren't created to be monogamous for life. You know, we're just another mammal. And look at the mammals of the animal kingdom, right? They don't typically show a single partner for life. They'll have all kinds of partners throughout their existence. No, but they don't have a calling to have a partner not only of body but of mind and soul. Their partners were not uniquely created as a helpmeet for them to fill not solely a physical need but a spiritual and emotional need. These are just excuses because we lose our joy and wonder. Sin makes us old and boring. In Genesis chapter 3, the moment, that sin enters, death enters, not just physically, but relationally and spiritually, childlike wonder is replaced with what? What do Adam and Eve feel once they've eaten the tree of knowledge of good and evil? Shame. Childlike wonder is replaced with fear and shame. Isn't that interesting? Have you ever noticed, you say, well, kids aren't smart enough to be afraid sometimes when they're little, right? And they certainly have no shame, all right? Kids, when they're little, have no shame at all. That's something, and I'm not saying we need to go back to nudity, but it is strange, isn't it? It's strange, is it not? How Adam and Eve had no concern for shame pre-sin, and then suddenly they develop what we call a very adult-like sense of propriety in the world. The book of Ecclesiastes shows an old soul made tired by sin. He's tried it all, hasn't he? Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What does a man gain by all that he toils under the sun? Tell me something. When you picture the writer of this book, is it a young pup in his teens, or is it an old, bitter man? Gray not only in the hair, but gray in his spirit and soul. He's used up, he's worn out, he's tired of all that he's seen in the world. That first chapter actually centers around a dullness in repetition. Things just happen over and over and over again, right? And there's nothing new under the sun, is what he proclaims. Is there not? Or have we just lost our sense of it? Chapter 1, verse 9, he states that all things are just full of weariness. It's an old person word, isn't it? You don't find young people going, boy, this day is just nothing but weariness is all it is. That's why Jace didn't say weariest day ever when he was little. He said best day ever. Every day, new and exciting, even if it wasn't in large ways. Ephesians 4:17 and following says, I tell you this, and insist on it in the Lord. You must no longer live as the Gentiles do in the futility of their thinking. They are darkened in their understanding and separated from the life of God because of the ignorance that is in them due to the, it says, hardening or callousness. You ever heard that word? Callousness of their hearts. Having lost all sensitivity, they have given themselves over to sensuality so as to indulge in every kind of impurity. They're full of greed. What an interesting combination of issues here. Whenever calluses form, who do they form on? Young people or old people, right? Old people typically get calluses. And as a result of that callousness of their heart, they're just seeking something to awaken a feeling of vitality in them. So they indulge in all impurity and all sin, just trying to find wonder again. I've got calluses on my feet. Maybe a few of my, so I've got a few less calluses on my feet, don't I? I shouldn't tell that story, should I? I don't care. I'm secure in my manhood. I had my first pedicure the other day ever. Yeah. Amy was like, I'm going to get a pedicure. You want to go? I'm like, what's all the fuss about? Let's find out, huh? So I went, yeah. And that woman said, you want this? I was like, sure, no more money, okay? Because that's what I figured out pretty quick there. It's just bumping you up in the tears every time. And I was a little bothered, too, because I didn't have old polish to take off or new polish to put on. My toes are still the same color, if you're curious. It was just the basic bath and scrubbing, scraping of the calluses off. Charged me the same price they charged her. Huh? And she had all the polish removal in that application. I thought that was a little unfair. That's sorry. I got off track. Sin doesn't just make us guilty. It makes us hollow inside. Makes us hollow. Psalm 104, we have this beautiful psalm about praising God who made it all and causes it to continue. And he doesn't get bored with it, does he? Like, you ever thought about that? You ever heard people, I'm just tired of life, I'm weary of life, I'm bored. How do you think God feels? If anybody has a right to be tired of seeing the same thing over and over, it would be God, wouldn't it? But see, God's not damaged by sin like we are. It hasn't ruined the goodness that he still finds in the world. You ever ask yourself, why is God letting this place go on? You ever ask that question? I don't think that's a question from the right kind of heart. I'm not trying to be mean. I've said it too. But the more I think about it, I find myself thinking, man, we are fixated on the wrong stuff, aren't we? On the negative, on the adult stuff. That's what we call it anyway. On sin. Why does God let it go on? Because there's something good he sees in it. There's someone good he sees in it. There's still potential and possibility and wonder and newness. Don't question why does God let it go on. Why don't we spend more time thanking him that we're here and we get to see some of it? Psalm 104, verse 19, he made the moon to mark the seasons, and the sun knows when to go down. You bring darkness, it becomes night, and all the beasts of the forest prowl. The lions roar for their prey and seek their food from God. The sun rises and they steal away. They return and lie down in their dens. Then people go out to their work, to their labor until evening. How many are your works, Lord? In wisdom you made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. We tend to go tired of the repeated joys, don't we? God just multiplies them and rejoices in them. And I think the question is, how do we get back? See, the gospel restores what sin has aged. Isn't it interesting how we talk about coming into Christ, how that's done? There's some language that gets used at times. Washing of regeneration, that sounds like a newness treatment, doesn't it? Or as he talks to Nicodemus, he uses some really interesting language, does he not? He says, you must be what? Born again. And Nicodemus goes, how can an old man be born again? I'm old, I'm aged. Yeah, you are. But we're not talking physically. We're talking about the age of your soul. So it needs born again in water and the Spirit. That rebirth imagery intrinsically tied to baptism itself, not only into forgiveness, certainly forgiveness, but also into newness of life and vitality and joy and wonder. New creation. Turn over to Matthew 18, if you would, for just a moment. Matthew 18. What an interesting argument the disciples have. Very adult, very adult. Verse 1 says, at that time the disciples came to Jesus saying, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Man, that's an adult argument, isn't it? Who's the most important? Who's got the power? Who's got the standing? Who's got the fame? Who's got everyone else looking at them and saying, boy, I wish I was that person? That's what our world's about. For the most part, that's what it's about. Isaac and I were driving today. We went to Panera to pick up because Amy was taking the others on up to camp. And so I was like, well, we're going out to eat because I ain't going home and cooking nothing because I'm tired. So we went out to Panera, and we were coming back, and we were coming down the hill, and all of a sudden there goes a cyber truck. All right, Isaac, buddy, he knows what a cyber truck is when he sees it. He's like, there goes a cyber truck, Dad. You don't see those very often. Those cost like $500,000. That's a lot of money, you know? And I'm like, I didn't know. I don't know what they cost. I'm not sure if he knows. But he might be right on the money for all I know. Riley's saying, yeah, he's right on the money, apparently. And I just asked him, I said, what's the point? What's the point? So everybody else can look at you when you drive by and go, oh, there's a sign. Who's the greatest in the kingdom of Southridge, right? It's that guy driving the cyber truck. That's who it is. He's on top of the kingdom. That's what the disciples are arguing over. Who's the most important? Calling to him a child, he put him in the midst of them and said, truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. So interesting here. This preoccupation with greatness. I know we talk about this passage and we're like, well, it's the innocence. I don't know, is it? Yeah, maybe a little bit. There's something else here about this child that this child has that we lose as we age. We lose sight of what life is really about, of what makes it full and good and worth living, you know? I mean, we lose sight of the simple good things that God gave us, and approaching life with humility and humbleness and trust and dependence and expectation that God is in control. Sin ages us into pride, boredom, cynicism, and an obsession with control. God restores us to joy, wonder, trust, and dependence. The posture of a child. Isn't it odd that Jesus doesn't say become better adults? Huh? Wouldn't that have made more sense to us, wouldn't it? Y'all quit doing what you're doing and be better people. Be better humans. Be better adults, John and Peter and Andrew and James. Be better. No, he says, be more like a child. Recover your capacity for wonder and humility and dependence. In 2 Corinthians 4:16 we read, though outwardly we are wasting away. Ain't that true? Ain't that? I can quote Proverbs 16:31 all I want about gray hair and a crown of glory, but at the end of the day, we look in the mirror and we go, what is happening? Outwardly, we are wasting away. Yet inwardly, we are made new day after day. Where? In the world? No. No, in Christ. In Christ. I just want to challenge us tonight to try to recover a little of our wonder in daily life as we trust and find joy in God's goodness all around us. When you see an amazing sunrise, don't say, well, I've seen that before. No, you haven't. Not that particular flavor of it. Take time to see it again. And maybe you say, do it again, God. Do it again tomorrow. It doesn't grow old. Slow down and notice beauty in creation, in Scripture, in relationships. Practice dependence like a child. You know, children don't have backup plans. Isn't that great? You ever ask a kid when they do something silly that ends in them getting hurt, what were you thinking? The answer is no. There was no plan B or plan C here. I thought it would work. I was shocked to find that it didn't, but I thought that it would go the way I intended. And we shake our heads at them and say, oh, kids. Yeah, but kids don't get old with worry, do they? No, we do. Why? Why don't kids get old with worry? Because they know Dad and Mom have got this. Do we know that? The Father has this. Seek renewal, not escape. See, that's what adults tend to. We tend toward escape. We tend toward, how can I get away from this day? How can I get away from my life? How can I get away from the problems? Because that's all we're focused on. And I'm not saying that life doesn't have problems. Jesus doesn't say that life doesn't have problems, does he? When he's talking to his apostles, does he say, hey, everything's going to go great when I'm gone? No worries, no bad days. No. He says, in this world you will have problems. Well, troubles, tribulation. I think we can call it problems, can't we? In this world you're going to have problems. But you take heart. Why? Because I've overcome the world. He says, I've said these things because in me you can still have peace. You can still have comfort and confidence that no, you're not in control, but that's okay. You were never meant to be. You wouldn't be very good at it. Someone else is. Isaiah 40:31. Those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. You ever watched a kid run? Been like, man, how do they do that all day, huh? They just run and they just run and they just run. And then eventually, if they run enough, you know what they do? They just go poof. They just flop down and they rest. Man, they rest good too, don't they? They rest about as good as they run. We can't do either. We don't run good and we don't rest good, do we, Bill? What's wrong with us? And some of it I can't fix for you, all right? Some of it's just the physical limitations of age. But some of it up here shouldn't be that big of a problem, and it is. Because we don't listen to Jesus, who says, don't worry about your life, what you're going to eat, your body, what you're going to wear. Who says, which one of you by worry can add a single hour to your span? By obsessing over the things that you can't control, by becoming despondent over things outside of your reach. In Christ, your spirit can get younger while your hair gets grayer. Isn't that good news? You can become more alive, even as the world says you should be winding down. I always remember, I've talked about him before, I always remember Andy Petticord at South Charleston, one of the oldest old men I've ever met in my life. Like, you looked at him and you're like, how is he walking? You remember Andy, don't you, Bill? I mean, he was white as could be and thin as could be, and he was squinted and wrinkled, and yet I don't know I ever saw that man have a bad day in my life. In my life. He would walk in and just happy as could be to see you. When he got up to talk at the table, it always blew me away because he was just rejoicing in being able to come before God and celebrate the sacrifice of Jesus and the hope of the resurrection. What was it about him? He believed it. It's pure and simple. He believed it. He believed that Jesus said, the thieves come to kill, steal, and destroy. But I've come. You may have life and have it to the fullest, more abundantly. That's what God does. He makes dead things live and old things new. And maybe tonight, he needs to do a little bit of that in your life. Maybe you've got some things that are making you old before your time. Could be sin. Could be sin that you're just not willing to give up. It's time to give it up. It's going to make you old. Could be worry, which is, I think, a form of sin. As much as we struggle with that, maybe there's some things we need to let go of and trust God on. Maybe you're just not spending enough time with him. You know, sin creeps in because there's room in our lives for it to creep in. Remember the demon Jesus says gets cast out and he goes around wandering the waterless places, but then he figures out his old residence. Guess what? It's wide open, cleaned and swept and put in order. So he says, let me get 7 buddies uglier than I am and let's come back. We'll have a party in here. It's looking for opportunities. We sometimes make them available. Maybe tonight you need to do something about that. Maybe tonight you need to begin your walk with Christ through rebirth, through baptism, new creation. Our Father is younger than we, but he wants us to be young with him. Don't let sin make you old. If you have a need this evening, need to respond in any way, we invite you to come while we stand, while we sing.
Learning to